G'day guys and gal. There's bad days where the weather is crap, you feel a bit sick, and your girlfriend, yeah right, is mad at you for something. Then there are bad days where your most heavily defended world explodes, causing a chain reaction which cuts the galaxy in half with a gaping portal to hell, as demons then rush forward to torment and devour countless sextillions of your people as the entire fate of the galaxy rests on your shoulders. The opening of the Great Rift was a really bad day for the Imperium, especially Gilliman, even though it technically triggered his resurrection. However, as he didn't want to be resurrected, you can just add that to the list of things that contribute to his worst day ever. But G-Man and the Imperium weren't the only ones affected by this catastrophic event. The other races were too, with some finding it nearly as cataclysmic as the Imperium, whilst others actually like the new Terran reality and are glad it happened. Before we get started, November is a pretty grim time for me. It's the last month before all the fun December stuff happens, the month where I basically have to work double time so I can actually relax over Christmas and the new year. But fortunately, it's also the month of the November Surfshark VPN sponsorship. You may be confused at my enthusiasm for a humble VPN, and honestly so am I. But that doesn't change the fact that most people need a VPN, and Surfshark is the best place to get it. A VPN is a software that allows you to transport your IP to almost anywhere else in the world, masking it in the process. The purpose of this could be to access a greater streaming service library, bypass shitty licensing deals, get around obnoxious government firewalls, and so on. For Australia, we always get shafted by licensing deals, so pretty much everyone I know uses a VPN, mostly Surfshark to be honest. Whilst living in China would pretty much guarantee you need a VPN if you want to access anything other than WeChat. Surfshark is more than just a VPN though. They also have their own antivirus amongst other software, so if you wanted to keep your software situation simple, you could run a lot of it through Surfshark. So to get 81% off and up to 6 months free, then use my link or code MAJOR. Cheers to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over each faction's reaction to the opening of the Great Rift, to show that it surprisingly wasn't all bad for all the non-Chaos factions. Let's get into it. Something we need to understand about the Warp and the Great Rift is that it isn't 100% Chaos's. Sure, Chaos lives there, and sure they control massive portions of it, but the vast majority of the Warp is neither good nor evil, just the source of power and emotion. This is why you can be a Psyker, draw power from the Warp, and never even get close to getting corrupted by Chaos. So when the Great Rift opened and flooded the galaxy with Warp energy, sure, it was now easier for demons to materialize and attack from more angles, but totally uncorrupted Psykers also got a power boost, which they would then use to kill said demons. I mean, fuck, the Emperor is waking up mostly due to the huge power boost he has gotten from the Great Rift, so this should go some way to explaining how the Rift could help other factions, not just Chaos. In saying that though, the Imperium's reaction was pretty fucking poor, since the main goal of the Rift was to screw over the Imperium. When the Rift opened, the Emperor got kicked so hard in the balls that the Astronomicon went out, and a million worlds screamed in horror. Thousands of worlds were invaded by demons and the forces of Chaos. Cries for help went unanswered. Screams of terror went unheard. Even when Gilliman literally punched and kicked his way to Terra and saved the throne world from an especially spicy corner invasion, and then took charge, and then even when the Emperor woke up and reactivated the Astronomicon, shit was still bad, as the Great Rift meant that any world on the opposite side of it, in Imperium Nihilus, could no longer use the Astronomicon. For half the galaxy, they had gone back to the Age of Strife, of Old Night, where everything was shitty. So the reaction overall was pretty terrible from all loyal Imperial citizens. Even the Emperor, who got a power boost, probably isn't vibing super hard, with half of his people now getting cum-blasted by demons on the dark side of the galaxy. You could argue that since the Great Rift was the catalyst for Gilliman's return, which was obviously well received by the Imperium, that the reaction to the Rift was overall good, but for the sake of this video, I'll be separating the two and keeping the reaction isolated to the Rift only. The Tau's reaction to the Rift has been pretty mixed, as it ended up as a pretty good opportunity for them, however also kind of bit them in the ass. The Tau's little pocket empire doesn't really need to worry about getting cut in half, nor are they a psychic race or have psychic potential, nor do they dive deep enough into the Warp to worry about how dangerous warp travel has become. So for them, they didn't really notice it at first. However, what they did notice was the massive reduction of attention that the Imperium was giving them, as there was now whale to fry. Hence the Tau began attempting to aggressively expand. As they were still on Imperium Sanctus, aka the side of the Astronomicon, the nearby Imperial worlds weren't these isolated, undefended things. However, they also weren't particularly really well garrisoned. To nobody's surprise, their aggressive expansion attempts really bit them in the ass, as when they experimented with a warp drive and kind of fucked it up as part of their 4th sphere expansion, a portal was torn open in the heart of their empire that connected with a point in a different part of the galaxy. This was called the Startide Nexus and initially seemed cool until a massive Death Guard armada began sieging it. If they could get through, then they would literally pop up in the heart of the Tau Empire, which is a huge no-no. Shadowsun engaged the Death Guard in a massive space battle, which was going poorly until the newly formed Tau God got involved and basically fucked up the Death Guard and saved Shadowsun's life. The opening of the Great Rift may have actually been the power boost needed to create the controversial Tau Warp God, so there's that. That whole incident with the Death Guard was the 5th sphere expansion, which came to an end before it even really got started. As another note, the 4th sphere expansion also went pretty poorly, as that was the expansion that created the Startide Nexus. It didn't go poorly because of that though, it went poorly because all Tau involved became genocidal maniacs that began murdering all non-Tau in their forces. So while the Great Rift provided opportunity for Tau expansion, both the 4th and 5th sphere expansions ended pretty badly. The Orcs, on the other hand, fucking frothed the Great Rift. To them, it wasn't a creation of Abaddon or the Chaos Gods, it was the creation of the Orc Gods, as the Greenskins literally called it Gork's Grin. This ties back into the fact that Chaos doesn't own the warp, so when Orc fleets fly into the Great Rift willy-nilly, Gork will teleport them to the spiciest war zones for the memes. If an Imperial fleet did this, they would die horrifically or get spat out somewhere totally random. The Orc logic behind the Great Rift is actually pretty hilarious. When it was pointed out that for the rift being Gork's Grin, it sure was spitting out a lot of demons, the Orcs simply said that demons taste like shit, so obviously Gork is spitting them out for his Orcs to battle with. When it was also pointed out that many Orc worlds were consumed by the Great Rift, the Orcs laugh and say that clearly those worlds were going a bit soft and needed a right crumpin to toughen them up. I fucking love the Orcs. So yeah, as they literally see it as a manifestation of their gods, they're pretty stoked about it. The Necrons have had such a Necron reaction. A big sigh and eye roll. See, the Necrons fucking despise the warp. It has caused them nothing but pain and problems, and every time they try and fix the warp's issues, the other races fuck it up again. Did you know that the Eye of Terror wasn't actually created by Slaanesh? It was created by the Old Ones as an accident due to them weaponizing the warp during the War in Heaven. The Necrons actually closed it, with Slaanesh's birth just ripping it open again. So now the Great Rift being a thing would piss them off even more. However, as I say, sigh and an eye roll instead of a massive tantrum, because it really doesn't affect them that much. Necrons don't have issues with corruption or warp problems, and they find demons pretty easy to deal with overall. Their empire is also spread out into dynasties, so it's not like they've been cut off from themselves. On top of that, they don't use the warp for warp travel, so it hasn't really caused them much drama there either. They've kind of just accepted it and then continue to tell people to get off their lawn. In saying that though, the Silent King is actively trying to create a massive galaxy-spanning null zone which would probably close the Great Rift, whilst Trazyn the Infinite actively tried to stop the rift from opening. However, now it seems as if Trazyn's curiosity is getting the better of him, as he now wants to fly into the rift to explore it. So overall, it's more of an inconvenience for the Necrons instead of an existential threat. The Tyranids fucking hate the Great Rift. When it first opened, the psychic backlash kicked the hive mind in the balls and knocked it out. When it woke up, it was pissed. It also finally recognized Chaos as a genuine threat, hence created Hive Fleet Kronos in direct response to the rift. Kronos is specialized in fighting Chaos. It features a much more powerful shadow in the warp, which nullifies psychers and demons, as well as having a shitload of range weapons, which is something demons often lack. As it is so specialized, it's common for a different Hive Fleet to fly to worlds, break them, suffer the casualties, then move on, allowing Kronos to come absorb its biomass unmolested. So overall, a pretty solid reaction. A new threat emerges, a solution for that threat is created. Usually I don't take this long to get to the Eldar's reaction to things because the Eldar are my baes, but hey, I'm feeling a bit silly today. To no one's surprise, the Craftworlds are not a fan of the Great Rift at all. Its opening revealed the locations of all Craftworlds to Chaos, hence numerous Chaos invasions hit multiple Craftworlds. Craftworlds are constantly moving, so don't need to worry about getting cut off or anything, but since the galaxy is now significantly more hostile, it's also hard for them to avoid danger. To their credit, they have stepped up their role in the galaxy and will actively aid Tau and Imperial forces, often hitting Chaos from behind whilst they are busy fighting against the forces of order. The Great Rift was also a trigger for the rise of the Ynnari, which is a plotline that has gone absolutely fucking nowhere. But if your Ned does wake up one day, come on GW, grow some balls and do it, then the Great Rift will be the thing to thank for it. But until then, we have a bunch of salty space elves who are fucking sick of demonic incursions. The Dark Eldar also aren't the biggest fans of it. Sure, there are now many worlds in Imperium Nihilus that are easier to raid, but there is also a bunch more demons. Not to mention, Komara recently had a huge demonic incursion incursion, which required parts of it to be shot off into the abyss to contain. As the Leagues of Votann have just about as much lore as my scrotum, it's hard to know exactly what they think of the Great Rift, but the elephant in the room is that on all 40k maps, the center of the galaxy, where the Leagues live, looks like it got turbo fucked by the Great Rift pretty hard, so I'm curious as to how they explain that one. Either way, the Leagues wouldn't be a fan of the Rift, and I'm low-key hoping the Rift is the reason why they've entered the setting. Suddenly, their impenetrable empire in the core of the galaxy is no longer safe for them. Maybe that's already been announced and I just haven't read it yet. And yeah, it goes without saying that the Forces of Chaos were pretty stoked. Wasn't much to react to since they planned it, but I don't think you'd find a single heretic in the galaxy who didn't get a hard-on for it. At the end of the day, the Great Rift was specifically torn open as a way to fight the Imperium. The other factions weren't considered as a part of the equation, so seeing how it wasn't all bad for everyone is pretty interesting. Man, the irony of it, if the Emperor uses the Great Rift to clap Chaos's cheeks now, would bring a smile to my face. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up some Majorkill Christmas merch. We've pretty much sold out of the Midnight Clad t-shirt, however the other designs in both singlet and t-shirt form are still available. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the real subscribe button for more reacting content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.